All right, welcome to Nerd Church. We are back in an evening session, down an elf, as we often are, but hopefully Pando's battle with basement plumbing issues will result in a victory. When we left off...
It's no guarantee.
Or at least some good XP.
Yeah, that's... I might need to edit that later. No, I'd mark it on YouTube as not for children. It's fine.
Courtney, we hope that your downtown plumbing or your downstairs plumbing issues are just fine.
That was not code.
Some strong innuendo to start out with.
Yeah, for real. So as a recap, you can see we still have the board laid out in front of us with all of our minis scattered about, but that's no longer the current lay of the land, this underground laboratory. All of last session you spent battling a mage and his transmuted minions. You were successful, but at what cost? At the cost of, specifically, Truffle, the daughter of Rents, the local werebore, and sort of head of security of the village, who was horrifically transformed into sort of a gibbering mass of mouths and sort of an aberration or monstrosity. In the end, you did not kill this thing, but instead you stepped away from the laboratory and gave Rents an opportunity to do the deed himself, which he indeed did, ending the life of the creature that had once been his daughter. There's been some resolution of other things. Fencel's son is recovering back at home. The half-elf traveler that you also pulled out of one of these glass tubes is recovering from his ordeal and injuries in the hut of a local villager. And the rest of you have had an opportunity to take a long rest and recover from your ordeal. So if you have not mechanically given yourself a long rest yet, let's be sure we do that. The other thing we're going to do is award some experience from last session, because we did not do that. So each of you is going to get a nice even 1,000 experience points for our previous session, and I will handle that for Courtney here. Let's see, manage experience. There we go. Good. We will pick our story back up. And actually, one of you pass me that carrion crawler. He doesn't need to be in there anymore. And neither does our little wizard. Set them to the side. So as I mentioned at the end of last session, we're going to make the time after this battle a little squishy, unless you, unless anyone here decides that you've got like an aggressive, urgent deadline that you want to be meeting and racing out of town. But otherwise, we can sort of say that you spend some time in the village. You have unlimited access to the laboratory during that time. You have a very grateful village full of folks who who are feeding you, sheltering you, talking your ear off about their gratitude, so you're able to fully recover from your wounds and kind of get yourself settled and prepared for whatever is next. But we can kind of talk about different parts of what you might do together first before you talk about what's next. So anybody want to take the lead on this? What would be some of your priorities during this time post battle.
Well, I'm sure that Potham would be like taping off the laboratory, going down there and inventorying everything, specifically looking for notes, notebooks, and then finding that equipment that those notebooks are talking about.
And Freya's happy to do some heavy lifting for him along down in there, so he can go through the things as quickly as possible and get stuff organized.
Okay.
And I'm sure that our parrot friend is down there. I can't remember his name.
Toucan.
Yeah,
and
Toucan.
Samuel.
Toucan Sam.
Samuel.
He doesn't go by Sam. It's very formal.
Samuel.
Samuel.
Era's probably getting a little antsy about how long it's been since she's put coins in her box. And is probably maybe a little sneakily looking around the lab to see if there's anything quick that she could swipe that's not going to be, that she believes is not going to be important to the team's quest, but could go missing without without issue.
Yeah, fair.
Also, offering just any kind of, because I'm assuming they're no longer were people, or are they still were people?
Oh, they're definitely still were people.
Okay.
Yeah.
No
I didn't know
relation?
if that had to do with, yeah.
Yeah, not related. So Teshiar had existed in this state
Oh,
for
right. Yes.
well over a century.
Okay.
This guy's only been here for a couple of years.
So are they trying to? I've just
Free
talked
themselves
to.
of this,
Yeah,
or
are
what?
we talking? I'm just kind of wanting to get the lay of the land now that this guy's gone here. Like, are the Teshiarian people happy?
Yeah,
being in their were states.
Yeah, my memory is that this was a refuge kind of area that where all these people, they were afflicted with this condition independently, and then have come here
Oh,
as a
okay,
safe
right. Okay,
refuge.
makes sense.
Yeah, it's kind of a little known secret.
So I don't know if there is even like a, maybe there may not even be like an overarching curse or something to lift.
Yeah. Well, so let's address these a few one or two items at a time.
Sure.
So it sounds like Freya's going to be not only helping out, but investing time more in the villagers and some of the leadership, and engaging with maybe Fensel and some of the other sort of town elders to get a sense of how they're doing. Thomas, could I have one more of those too when you come over?
Nope. Yes.
And now you wonder why you died.
This is part of the retribution.
Potham, I think, very true to form, is digging into the lab and trying to uncover anything useful. And Air, also true to character, is looking for something
To swipe.
for what's valuable. And I would imagine that Pando is, while certainly open to helping in the lab, is probably very focused up and outside of the lab. Also
A butterfly.
engaging, yeah.
Yes. Ew.
Also engaging, thank you, with the villagers, but maybe also, depending on how long y'all stick around, venturing upstream a little bit to this source of energy that she sensed earlier, or maybe just talking to people in the village about it. Let's focus on the lab to start. So with Potham, with Freya and other people supporting you, why don't you roll an investigation check at advantage?
$24.
Ooh.
Nice. Okay. So, a couple things. First, let's talk about you acquire a lot of notes, a lot of schematics, a lot of bound scientific journals or magical journals, right? That though this wizard was probably a little unstable mentally and psychologically,
The good ones always are.
yeah, what he definitely was meticulous about his record keeping around his process. So you're able to get a really pretty good sense of what he's been focused on in this laboratory over the last couple of years. And the storyline that you sort of uncover here is that he originally was sent here, hey buddy, that he originally was sent here to experiment with the different possible use cases for this power source. And it sounds like the order he was given, or the mission he was given, was left intentionally vague. Like, you are an expert in a certain thing. This is a really powerful magical power source. Get creative. Explore the space. See what you can do with this, right? And bring back useful findings. Like, send back useful findings that will make the empire strong.
All my tax dollars going to this dead end research.
Yeah. Now,
Air doesn't pay taxes.
in an environment like this, a slightly unstable genius can go a lot of different directions. And what this guy clearly did was dive fully into some of his darkest imaginings of what he could create, right? So this was sort of, you imagine somebody who back at different magical colleges where he had worked in the past, or research funded by different noble houses publicly, where he felt like he had constraints on what he was allowed to do, what he could pursue or not pursue, and it was stifling to him. And then suddenly he was given this gift of nearly bottomless funds, a private space to do his research, and a catalyst that essentially gave him way more power than he had ever had access to before. And once his perceived shackles fell off, his limitations, he started to get pretty wild with the ideas that he was pursuing. And so the sense that you get here is that he was looking to accomplish two things. One, he was focused on control. And two, he was focused on mutation. So the two primary tracks of his research here over the last several years seem to focus on those two things. One, can I turn things that already exist in the natural order into something bigger, more dangerous, more powerful? Can I basically inject the power from this power source into living things and create something extraordinary? He was, in many ways, trying to replicate artificially what happened naturally post-quickening. So this is where, and I know I'm doing a big lore dump here, but this is where I'll just remind you of the sort of global history of Tellus, which is that at some point in the history of Tellus, the gods exited. And when the gods exited, the magical power, or the divine and magical power that they had been owning and controlling and channeling, was released and dispersed into the wider world, which is why magical thinkers believe that Tellus is so richly saturated with magic. It's why your average 6-year-old can cast cantrips and start fires. It's why so many creatures that hundreds of years ago didn't look a certain way now have rapidly evolved into extremely diverse mythical sort of creatures, right? The reason that there's crazy beasts running around out there, manticores and griffins and things like that, those didn't exist pre-quickening. It was the rapid suffusion of magical energy into the planet that quickened all of those evolutions and created some really wild stuff. This guy was pursuing a way to force that. to say, well, if it can happen naturally over the course of decades or hundreds of years, what if I can just do it in this chamber and transform something? So that's part of what he was working on. The other channel of his research was focused on control. So he was exploring ways to essentially implant things into living creatures that would let him exert sort of psychic control over them, to channel their urges or tendencies, or even take direct control over them. And it's the purple goo that was that bridge. So he came across a fungus, basically, that had both sort of psychedelic but also properties of influence, where living creatures that consumed this stuff would be open to suggestion. But he sort of experimented with this, crossbred it, and got it to a point where it was less about eat this and now you'll do what I say, and more about, if I literally inject the essence of this into all of your cells, if I infuse you with this, you will start to be psychically connected to me, and I can, to a certain extent, control you. Now, this was over everything I just described was over the course of years. And he started with mushrooms. He then moved on, and I started experimenting with plant life. And so the sort of twig blights that you fought were some of his earliest experiments in plants, eventually leading up to things like the animated tree that you fought outside on the other side of the lake. But most recently, just in the last year, in the journals you see that he moved on to animals. And while he started with small creatures, sort of regular mundane animals, he had very little success, but just enough results to make him start moving forward on trials with what he decided was his next sort of best step, which were these lycanthropes and werebeasts, which is why he then took Yarbo and Truffle, and his eventual goal was to make his next experiment this half-elf that he had captured. So in his mind, it was a steady progression towards what he sees as more elevated creatures, right? And along the way, you see plenty of notations about the pain and suffering that these beings experienced, and there seems to be very little hesitation or concern about that, right? Necessary steps in the process for the progress that we are making. And there's a number of letters, sort of drafts of letters that you find that are him expounding the benefits and virtues of what he's creating for some audience. There's some leader that he's reporting back to, essentially, and saying, this is going to be good, boss. Wait till you've got thousands of these. You know, a battalion of creatures like this will sweep across, So he's clearly, at a certain point, especially in the last few months, has shifted gears from, can I do this, to how do we scale this up to be a force in war? How do we weaponize this?
Does he identify his
I was going to say,
contact?
is there a name, an addressee?
Yeah. So a lot of what you find when it comes to communication is either written in code or is intentionally left pretty vague, but you do pick up a couple things. You have a very high investigation roll, so I'm going to give you all of the information that I have set aside here. So there are messages scattered all around that mention different contacts, but a couple of things that you pick up. One, there are contacts at House Kieran, as well as House Ondori, Ondori.
The usual suspects.
But there are also several, and these are not all from him back, right? He's got incoming messages that you find as well. One in particular that seems to be addressed to more than just him, like it's sort of a missive that was sent out to a network of people. And there's a line in there that you managed to decode that essentially is admonishing and sort of yelling at people in the network to keep any, quote, hint of this work from the Emperor's watchful eyes until the great gift is ready to be offered into his hands. That note in particular is signed Vega of the Gentle Harvest. VEGA is the name, and the Gentle Harvest is an identifier of a group, perhaps, is the impression that you get.
Well, Samuel, the impression that I'm getting is that this isn't the only one of these laboratories.
I don't remember Samuel's voice, but
It's you only have like two
follow
or
your
three.
nose. No, I think
Squawk!
I think he pauses for a second and says, "That seems a logical deduction. However, if the same pattern that we see in these journals was followed, perhaps you're not looking for laboratories of the same kind. I could imagine literally hundreds of different uses for a source of magical energy like this. Perhaps what they are doing is dispersing their bets, so to speak, trying many different avenues, forms of magic, different sorts of experts, and inviting them to play around with this and see what they can create. The kind of creative freedom given to this madman is a bit staggering.
And
But
these oh, sorry, go ahead.
Going after each experimenter isn't necessarily the right avenue of approach for this. I would imagine that you take out one, possibly two or three more pop up in their place. So this could have just been kicking the can down the road, gesturing to the laboratory at large.
So,
But what we need to do is find out who the boss is.
Vegeta. I mean, fake.
You're right. We should get fajitas after this.
yes. So, he obviously was communicating through the device too. Is that how the messages were going in and out? Was through he's communicating through this device somehow, or how were the messages going in and out?
There are physical nodes.
Well, there's
You found physical notes.
That were being dropped through? Like, wasn't there like a portal or something?
there is a portal that
Yeah.
was from House Kieran to here,
Yeah.
which is how we found this place.
Yeah.
Well, from House Kieran into Keep to here.
Yeah.
You do find in here a portal. The portal here, however, is broken, non-functional. Whether it was damaged in this combat or whether he did something with it when he came downstairs, it's a similar birch hoop, but it is snapped. So it's hard for you to know, unless you do more research on these, it's hard for you to know whether they're multifunctional, whether they can connect to other portals, or if it was just a single connection.
Does mending work on? No, it's not magical, right? It's got to be non-magical.
Mending could fix the hoop, but not the magic.
Yeah.
So, I just need a little timeline thing help. Because the thing that we were tracking is actually this then. Your thing that was stolen and that we were tracking then
Well,
is
what you were
this?
tracking was actually something that Air finds. Because as Air is patting this wizard's corpse down and looking around for things of value, in this wizard's pocket is the coin that your
that was attached to the
what is that guy's name? What was that?
Dave.
No, it wasn't Dave.
Oh, that guy.
We all
the,
know.
the bathrobe wizard.
Yeah, bathroom wizard Ruto Zenta.
Ruto
Ruto
Zenta.
Zenta
Yes.
enchanted that coin with
Uh-huh.
sort of a Giz. Is that how you pronounce it? Anyway, a compulsion spell.
Okay.
To make him keep it in his pocket, and then the tracker was tuned to that coin. So you've got the coin back. That's the good news. The bad news is the compulsion spell is no longer in effect. So you can
Steal the coin.
keep the coin.
I recognize it as the coin, though, right?
So the
Well, isn't the coin part of the long-range probes? So the compulsion spell is just kind of what was on it.
No, the compulsion spell was a one-time
I gotcha.
deal. It connects with the first person
I gotcha.
that sees it once it's sealed away. And the, I believe, I'll go back and listen to double check this, but I believe the tracking device was also a one-time.
right.
Oh, I thought you gave it to me as a feat.
Oh, no, you're right. You're right, because I get, which we still haven't figured out how to
Yeah.
do. No, you're right. So so you could still use it in that way, but the compulsion is no
Compulsion
longer
spell
a
is
part of
okay.
it.
So you can still use the coin as part of
You
that.
can still
Okay.
track the coin.
You can still track
could
the
put it
coin,
somewhere.
just not the compulsion of whoever sees it to keep it. Got it. And but the coin was with the parts, right? Of your it was with Bottom's thingy.
No, it was in the wizard's pocket.
Yeah, because we sent it through the portal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, but the idea was
right. Okay.
you sent it through the portal with Potham's thingy.
Yeah.
When he opened the box to get to Potham's thingy, he saw the coin. The magic took effect. Unknowingly, he
Also
shoved it
not a
in.
euphemism.
Yes.
Unknowingly, he
There's
shoved
totally
it in
a
his pocket.
Saturday Night Live skit about that. Thingy in a box.
Mm-hmm.
So Potham's
Thingy.
box was the delivery method for the compulsion coin.
Okay. But so where's Bottom's thingy?
Oh, it was a ruse. It was.
It was a ruse. I
It
thought.
was a thing that
Oh,
wasn't
that
going
looked
to work.
like something that was
Yeah.
never going to work. That's right.
He made
I'm
it
sorry. Thank
intentionally
you for
garbage.
right. I remember
Or
that now.
not garbage,
I'm
but
sorry.
less
Yes.
less
Not.
effective.
Intentionally garbage.
I think that Bottom's next thing would be scrubbing this place down of his tech, taking notes and pieces.
Okay.
Specifically, that large battery that Bottom now has working.
So a couple things on this note, and then we'll jump to things of value before we address villagers. There's
Seems like the right order for a priority.
Yeah. There's a lot in here, technology-wise, raw materials-wise, that would be of interest and value to Potom. However, your ability to cart a lot of this away is challenging. So what I will broadly say, just mechanically, is if you want to describe some alchemical or tinkery components that are of modest size, you can just add those to your inventory.
Okay.
And you can kind of run it past me. Okay, not like, oh, a very rare magic item, right? Like not that kind of thing, or the 3 things I need to put together to make a very rare magic item.
Sure.
But like, certainly, if the value we'll use to estimate this is, you are pretty sure that whatever you take out of here, that you can actually carry. If you wanted to sell it back in the city to your friend Morana, the master crafter, who you had an interesting conversation with. Eyeballing this, there's at least 500 gold pieces worth of stuff
Sure.
in vials and little caskets and little strips of metal bundled up and things in here that this wizard had set aside to help build some of the crazy stuff that he was working on. Second thing I'll say is there's quite a bit in here that with only a small amount of effort could be repurposed for use in the village and would be extremely valuable. There's a lot of just basic building materials, things that have value that if somebody loaded up a wagon and took some time to get them up to the city, could be turned around for a good return. So there's useful stuff in here, even just like big panes of glass and things like that that could be used for windows in housing and whatnot. And so I think with a little bit of guidance, you could direct people in the village to be like, well, you could repurpose this and you tear this apart and let's break this down. Maybe that's part of what you and Freya are working on together, perhaps.
Sure.
Even is
I imagine that Samuel is a part of that too, where we're just kind of, like, this stuff should go to the village to ease the suffering.
Mm-hmm. And then the last thing I will say is the stuff he actually built, like the battery specifically, but even some of these other parts. I think they're deeply unsettling to Potom, because he's taken what you built and you're not entirely sure how he turned it into what it is. As we talked about at the end of the last session, this is a type of magic. Transmutation is a type of magic that you've not explored a great deal. And even as you look at this battery that he had submerged in the goo, when I described it, it was like at the center of it, it looked a lot like your stuff. But then there were layers upon layers upon layers geometrically out from the center, and at each layer it started to look a little less constructed and a little more organic. And I think Potom gets like sucked into staring at that middle space, some of the like layers 3, 4, 5,
Sure.
where you're like, what is even happening here, right? Where it's like a middle ground between, I could see how this got built, but then how did it start to look like this? It almost looks like it grew.
I also
From something.
sort of imagine that he's like flipping through the journals and being like, where's the drawing of this?
Mm-hmm. And that is the only thing that's not documented.
Oh God, of course.
But I'm going to let you make an Arcana check to see what you can intuit about this battery, this device.
Okay. There is something. There's something neat. This is it. Kind of an intelligence check. Okay, well, I cast Enhance Ability on myself, and I'll be
Okay.
taking this check at advantage.
All right.
Do 23.
23 is very good.
Strong rules
This is
so
20,
far.
yeah, 20 or
Wow.
23. There's a 2.
So here's what happens. This is kind of fun for me, and maybe for you. I think.
Maybe for you.
Well, let me ask a broad question. How long do you all, generally speaking, intend to stay in the village?
I don't think do we have a clear like motivation to leave is the question. I don't think we do really.
Other than just getting back to Morana to be paid for our magical items that we've found so far.
Right, so we're probably not in a big rush.
Ooh, I'm pretty sure that you found as you were looking around, I'm just going to add to Matt's story here, you found the magical weapons that were part of the robots. It was in his possession of the magical weapons. So, magical weapons just kind of scattered across the remains of the exocomp.
Yep.
Cash money here.
Okay, well, so if you're not in a hurry, here's what I think happens.
Oh yeah. No, I think that
Yeah,
Potham
we're
is
not in a
definitely
hurry.
more like, let's find some answers here before we go anywhere.
I think, and you all have observed this in small ways before, as you've traveled around with Potham a little bit. Well, this is the most extreme version of this that you've seen yet. I think he gets obsessed. And he gets lost in it. And he can't, you find him down there all the time, staring at this thing, or poking at it, or scribbling things on the stone floor with chalk, or even when he's not down there, like wandering the paths, just like staring up and to the side, not engaging with people, mumbling to himself about this, going over and over, sketching it over and over and over again. I think you lose 2 days where it's Potham doesn't even realize that more than 2 days have passed. And there's all he's doing.
Potham.
He's really hungry.
And you have to sleep, Potham. You
Yeah.
have to sleep. Because you're getting...
I will.
You get very irritable.
Yes. You don't understand.
So the outcome of this, mechanically, is as follows. Potham sort of force teaches himself a little bit of transmutation magic.
Sweet.
He broadens his understanding of magic because this is a kind of magic that you've never even considered or looked at, because it's so different from what you're interested in or how your brain works. But this device essentially gives your brain a roadmap to get it, because it's bridging from what you know so well, so intimately, that you're perhaps the world's greatest expert in. And by following the threads in this progression from one to the other, you kind of unlock for yourself the secrets of transmutation magic.
Wow.
The way we're going to do this mechanically is I want you to take 1,000 experience points.
Holy crap.
Shit. All right.
And
I don't know.
I
I
want
was
you
the
to,
main character of this.
Right.
and I want you to take 2 levels of exhaustion.
Okay. That seems about right. I guess I was sort of thinking that was coming.
Yep. And there's another secret effect that I'll tell you about another time.
Ooh.
Ooh.
I was going to say, is it that I built myself a new transmutated exocomp in the process?
We'll see.
Okay.
You definitely did not build. You did nothing except this for
Sure.
2 straight days. You didn't sleep. You barely ate. You did not engage with other people other than telling Freya to move this heavy thing or break this or whatever.
Break this.
Dragon.
Like you disappeared from yourself and others for 2 straight days, and you come up for air, exhausted, spent. The secret thing is something you and I will talk about later.
Okay.
It's your path into understanding transmutation magic was a dark path.
Ooh.
Oh.
Oh. Cool.
Yeah.
Because
So
I've
we'll,
been kicking an idea around anyway.
so we'll explore that.
Okay.
Walk the left-hand path.
We'll explore that later. Yes. Okay, so while all this was going down, you've been hunting for valuables. This does not take you 2 days.
He was obsessed. You could do what you wanted, really.
Yes, you had a lot of.
That was pretty straightforward. It
Yeah.
wasn't.
For this. I would like you to make an investigation check, and you may do this at advantage too, because you really have a lot of time, and you also have access to people who can help you. But what your investigation check is really against here is other people are down here looking for stuff too, and so it's kind of like, what do you get eyes on fast?
Oh, jeez. 15.
Okay, that's pretty good.
It's pretty good. Not great.
I feel like every once in a while, Potham, like as he's falling into this descent into madness, is like looking around and being like, "What are all these people here for? I said keep them out.
Definitely upset with people.
Why are you standing right here? Go."
So Air, right away on this mage's person,
Mhm.
you of course find the coin,
Uh-huh.
but you also find a scroll case tucked in his belt that he for some reason never managed to reach for.
Idiot.
That scroll, you get some help and identify. Somebody in the village helps you identify. It is a scroll of the spell Mind Spike.
Oh, okay.
You also find a little bit of money tucked away in sort of his living area. 200 gold pieces. This looks like it's sort of like walking around money, although he doesn't ever leave the lab, so you're not really sure what he was doing with this. But then, with a 15, you do find tucked away back behind some of his workspace, like essentially not well hidden, but hiding behind like a bunch of these notebooks. I think Podham's pulling these notebooks off of a shelf and ignoring this, but you immediately see behind all these notebooks a small chest, like jewelry box size.
Okay.
And you grab it immediately. You're like, hey, I know what a treasure chest looks like. That's for
I've seen
me.
one treasure chest. I've seen all.
Mhm. It is locked.
Magically. Or locked.
I'm just,
Can
it's got a lock on it.
can Air attempt to lockpick it?
Uh-huh.
What do I roll for that again? Just whatchamacallit? Sleight of hand, right?
Yeah.
But then it's like plus proficiency if you're proficient with the.
If you're
tools or
proficient
something
with
like that?
lockpicks, then you
Yeah.
have your proficiency.
And I do
Otherwise,
have-
it's a dex
yeah.
check.
Yeah. Okay. So plus 5. We'll see what happens here. Ladies and germs. God dang it. 9.
Okay. I'd like you to make a dexterity saving throw.
Oh god. That's okay. I'm alright at those two. Oh my gosh. 5.
Solid.
Wow.
So-
Can I borrow some of your plus your 20s that you're rolling over there?
Right, exactly. Or just a couple points.
Well, on
off
those
the
two
top.
checks, I have a +8.
Oh my god.
So I think,
So-
in your
Haste or like,
in your sort of feelings of relief after coming out of this battle unscathed, getting back into this laboratory, and your eagerness to look for something of value,
Yeah.
you rush past
obvious
some basic choices, which is kind of a theme with your party. You don't check the chest for traps. You just grab it and jam your lockpick in, and when the small copper needle enters your fingertip, you immediately feel a strong burning sensation, and you think,
big mistake.
whoops, maybe I should slow down next time. As you take 14 points of poison damage,
Oh, poison.
and you have the poisoned condition.
No, not the first time.
Oops.
That poison condition lasts for 24 hours, which isn't great, but you're also not in a big hurry, as we've discussed. So I think the next day you spend sort of lounging around and recovering.
Yeah.
But you do, I think, next get some help to get this thing open. And so in your sickbed while you're convalescing, you crack this thing open, and inside you find 50 platinum,
Wow.
a diamond that you estimate in value at 150 gold pieces, and a wand. This wand is, you're not actually sure if it's wood or bone. It's a very pale, if it's wood, it's probably driftwood and maybe petrified. If it's bone, it's a long bone that has been sort of polished down, or a terrifyingly long finger bone.
Ooh.
but it's probably a good 10 inches of sort of pale ivory colored, not perfectly straight, sort of organic looking, wavy, but it does generally come to a point. No identifying markers on it other than a single rune etched into the base.
Sorry, I'm writing this all down.
Yeah, no problem. So 50 platinum, a diamond worth 150 gold, and a wand.
Yeah, the 200 gold and the diamonds exist for the briefest of moments before they're dropped into that box.
Oh, the diamond's going in the box.
Yeah, the diamond and the 200 gold.
Okay.
And then the 50 platinum is what I will
Bring to the party.
bring to the party.
Okay.
And the wand, I suppose.
So 350 in value. That's what we're talking about. Of what you threw in the box.
Yeah. Never sees the light of day.
Okay.
Right off the top.
The box hums warmly. The box is pleased.
The box hums with delight.
I feel like I was straining its patience. It's been a while.
Yeah. Freya.
Yeah, so Freya's been thinking about some stuff. Well, first of all, she would like to just get to know the villagers better, but also like in a practical way, like offer to them what she can offer with her strength and being able to move things and being able to. Is there anything that needs to be built? This has been so long that they've been oppressed by this guy. Like what do you need help with to get things to where they need to be? The other thing I was thinking of is that Freya really liked swimming in that pond. She's gonna take a couple of real long swims.
I like it. All right. Well, let's explore each of these ideas a little bit. So, I think, again, Freya's sort of community leadership skills and experience come out here in a big way. So, I would imagine that in this kind of sort of time of transition for the village, that you and Fensel bond pretty quickly, right? Like you recognize he's while this is a time for celebration, that he's also in a really interesting and challenging leadership moment.
Mm-hmm.
This has been his role as a leader in this village for 2 years now, has basically been like oppressed middleman.
Let's not die.
Yeah, like
let's not piss him off. Let's not die.
Exactly. And that's forced him to make some really difficult decisions. Yeah. It's forced him into the position of being like the voice of some really painful stuff for people in the village, at times asking people in the village to take a hit. That
was
sacrifice.
Sort of my question too. Is there resentment? Is she picking up on resentment?
Yes. Not everyone, but as you maybe as you're swimming
and contemplating,
maybe there are times, I think, when Fensel, or perhaps others, but I think Fensel finds himself drawn to you a few times. Once you have the first of these conversations where he realizes that you get it, that you've been a leader who had to make tough decisions, or you've been a leader who had to ask your followers to sacrifice or to go without or to hold the pass while the rest of your warriors escaped, or like some of these kinds of things. Like you don't have the identical experience to him, but you've lived some of this in a way that no one else in the village has.
Am I picking up on something that there may be challenge to his leadership in there, or that there's fractioning in some way of what's going on?
Or does he have the hots for her?
No, I don't think it's that. I think he
You should make a move.
I think he's slightly
He's a deer. He's
afraid
kinda-
of you,
kinda-
like physically
Yeah,
intimidated by you.
he's kind of fragile, I think.
He's a
I
tiny,
don't know.
frail deer man.
Tiny, frail-
And you look like a predator.
Right.
Don't hurt the tiny
He
frail
is
deer
a-
man.
He
Yeah.
is a steed.
Yeah, you have teeth
Yeah,
for eating
yeah,
meat.
yeah. Yes.
But I do think he's drawn to you more like a mentor or a confidant, or even just kind of the only person who might get it, where he's feeling really isolated. There are people in the village that obviously are grateful to him for keeping this village alive through a very dark time. But there's probably like 3 or maybe 4 families in the village who show either deep resentment or outright hostility to him. And you come to learn as the two of you talk, I can picture him sort of like sitting on the edge of the dock or the pier as you kind of paddle back and forth and the two of you, talk. He shares some difficult stories with you that his child and Truffle were not the first children to be taken, and that the families who have lost children now have some very natural resentment. Like, his kid's alive, and there's now 4 or 5 families in this community who lost a child to this monster, basically, and Fensel didn't stop it, right? And he was the one saying at the time, there's nothing we can do, or saying, this saves all the children, right? And which he thought was the best he could do at the time. And I think, so that's what comes out. But I don't think you recognize a threat to Fensel in the sense of like
Like a civil war
they want
fractioning.
to overthrow him.
Yeah.
But I do think there's a small portion of this community that's like, they want him to walk out of the village and never come back. And they will say that to his face or behind his back.
I mean, I guess part of our discussions too, and what Freya would say is that that can't be ignored. You have to stand up and directly address that grief and that need, and just what ways do you think that could, just challenging him to think of ways that he could possibly face this.
Yeah. Resign for optics? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's the PR play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what I'm hearing you say is that you are kind of coaching this guy a little bit.
Or I'm just advising him just to say, don't ignore this in your own grief. In your own grief, this is it would be very easy to, because I know that you grieve for these children too. So in what way can you bring that grief together with these families so that so your community can be united?
What I'm going to ask you to do is, and you can choose, depending on how you think Freya would approach this, what her sort of spin on this would be. Make either an insight check or a performance check.
Non-intimidation?
Yeah, just yell at him. No, I think for me it's insight or performance. So either you are approaching it very much like let's call it an executive coach, right? Like just asking lots of questions until he comes to a point where he is like, here's how, okay, I got it. Like he comes to his own conclusion. Or performance where you're like kind of trying to inspire him, like go
Freya's
do it
totally in performance.
Go do it this way.
She's going to charge forward and be like, this is how you should think, but not say that.
Right, I like it.
Definitely more.
So you're like modeling a
this
battlefield
is what you should
speech
do.
kind of thing.
Yes, this is
Yeah.
what you should do. Not like, I think that Pando would approach it in a very different way. Right? Okay.
All right, good. Well, how about let's get a performance
Let's do a
check.
performance.
I think that Freya's like acting as if it's a
No
battlefield
way.
speech.
Well, that's only an
Addressing
8.
like this imaginary.
An 8.
It was on a 15, which would have been a 15 plus 1, but oh well.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
So
Misjudged didn't read the room correctly.
She can't. She can only do what she does. Okay.
So I think the way this works is he's grateful.
Yeah.
He doesn't necessarily walk away and go do what you told him
Yeah.
to do. Like, I think he knows his people well enough to be like,
That's
That's
gonna
not
work.
going to play.
Well, and
Here.
Freya has enough insight to know, like, she can offer what she does.
Mhm.
And he's going to take it how he does and apply his own wisdom to it. She's humble enough to know that here's what she offers, here's what he does.
So I think Fensel is grateful. I think what he's mostly grateful for is a confidant who gets it,
Okay.
and he doesn't feel quite as alone. But he puts his own approach to trying to repair some of these fences. Let's say.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think happens is at the end of the second day, as you're swimming
Mm-hmm.
back and forth, Fensel's not around.
Up around the islands, using my tail.
Mhm. I think the it's close to dawn.
Mm-hmm. Which is my favorite time to swim
Yeah,
in the open.
because again, remember these folks are up at nighttime,
Yeah.
right? They're up and around, so you all have been a little nocturnal
Yeah.
for these few days, except for Potom, who's up 24 hours.
24/7.
But it's like sort of the quote unquote end of the day for them, approaching dawn. And you're swimming, and there's solitude because most people have headed back to their homes, or they're kind of spending some final time before the day ends, wrapping up. And you hear a sort of dong 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 down the pier, some footsteps, and you kind of pop your head up, and you see Rents, who makes his way out to the end of the dock and sits down heavily, drops the spear on the pier next to him, and just sort of slumps over. And it's hard for you to tell immediately if he even knows you're there, because he's not looking at you, he's not acknowledging you. So you don't, at a glance, you don't know if he came down here looking for you, or if he came down here thinking you were alone, or he was alone. But he's now sitting there where you've spent the last couple days talking to Fensel quite a bit, hoofed feet hanging off the side of this pier.
All right, that's what I had. Rinse with a question. That's what I was going to ask next. All right, maybe I just kind of make myself seen in the calm water.
Okay. So he sees you, and though his facial expression doesn't change much, he gives sort of a nod, like an upward nod, like an acknowledgement, but doesn't say anything.
Okay. I'm going to approach a little closer. I do want to, I don't know what to say to him, but I do want to engage him. Conversation, you know? Hey, friend. Hey, friend.
All right, he greets you, and I think maybe, well, you tell me, like, how do you approach this? Because he's not immediately offering much. How do you think Freya would engage with this guy?
Freya would be straightforward, I think, in saying, I honor your daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I mourn your daughter. I honor your daughter. And I need you to know that. That she will not be forgotten.
He takes a sort of a deep and slightly shuddering breath, and there's a long pause, and then he says, you and I are warriors. I can't claim to know how you approach your life. But if you are like me, you have spent most of your life viewing the world in simple, clean lines and knowing what to do next. Because what to do next is what the situation demands and what your training tells you to do. If there is a threat, I point my spear at it and I charge until the threat goes away. now my training doesn't tell me what to do. I can't charge at this. So, what is left for me?
You have retained your honor. You have defended your community. You have remained true to yourself. And at the end, you were the best father that you could be and made the ultimate sacrifice within yourself for your daughter.
He thinks about that for a while. And then he says, I don't know if you have ever been asked to make a choice between what your heart tells you to do and what your duty commands of you. But I find myself trapped at the crossroads of two paths. And though it is not fair to ask you, I will ask you which direction I should move. I'm a warrior and you are a leader of warriors. Down one path is what I desperately want, which is to charge out of this village and find something to fight. To chase down whatever brought this this elf here and drive my spear through it over and over and over again. And to keep chasing that and killing and burning until I cannot move or stand. And down the other path, I am responsible, or have been responsible, for the safety of this village for 50 years. And this village is still not safe. But I don't know how long I can stand guard over this village, knowing that I'm guarding other people's children when I couldn't guard my own. So tell me, Commander, what do I do? What are my orders?
Should we invite him to join us? I don't know.
That's what
that's what
Padam
I
thinks we
said.
should do too. So hold on. No, I think that there's a lot to be said here.
Too many
I think that
memories
there's
here,
a
you
lot
know?
to be said here, and I think that first of all, it is a fallacy to say that you could not guard your daughter. At the end of the day, at every point that happened, you acted with honor. At every point that happened, you acted in her best interest to the maximum of your ability. You did that. You fulfilled everything that you could have possibly done in the face of every circumstance, no matter the fact that your daughter ultimately died. That was out of your hands. But at every point that you had any choice, you did everything that you possibly could. So it is a fallacy to say that you ultimately did not act with honor at every step for your child. Including the ultimate sacrifice that no parent in this world, nobody ever wants to make to any loved one in there, but especially I imagine a child, which I don't have a child, but especially I can imagine to a child. So you have acted with honor. I can also imagine that you are the type of commander in your place who has others here that can also do your job. that can also step into or have the potential to step into that protection, especially when your threat is less. I would say we will be making our way at some point away from the village. We're not quite ready to go yet, but there would be a spot among us for you to travel with us if you wanted to go out into the world. If you decided that you wanted to stay here, what I would say always, and for me the fulfillment of duty and that obligation is of the highest order. So I would understand if you wanted to stay, if you didn't want to take us up. But sometimes duty can call you away. You have a duty to yourself to be able to work these things out, to be able to come back even stronger. So if you wanted to join us, I would extend that invitation to you to join us. We would, I'd vouch for you anyway, to come along. But you have my full support if you decide to stay. And anything that I can do in the meantime to help you with that, to shore up, what your defenses are here, to help train anybody that you would want to train, to do anything like that, you have my assistance.
Okay. So I think in this conversation, he doesn't really say much more.
Mm-hmm.
But as you finish talking, he stands up and he grabs his spear.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden you see him go from the Rents you've seen since the moment his daughter passed and he stumbled up out of the lab. He goes from that sort of deflated figure to standing tall and rigid-backed, like when you first saw him from across the river. And he flips the spear up into his hand and he pounds it on the pier next to him and then slams it into his chest in a salute and then just turns on his heel and walks away. And you don't see Rents again until the next day, but when you do, you encounter him out in the village where he is running a few other a little more physically intimidating members of the community through some combat drills, some emergency drills, and things of that nature. And he waves you over. Mm-hmm. And I think you spend the next day or maybe a little more working with some of these other folks. There's a were-panther, there's a were-tiger, there's a were-bear.
Were-bear?
Some
there's got to be a
holes.
were-bat.
Yeah, with some holes in his wings, like he's he's not quite with it.
Sure, there's for sure a were-bat. And he talks like this.
His name's Carl.
My name's Carl.
It's Carl.
One with the shadows.
Do you have any cigarettes?
But I think you invest a day and a half in just walking through some basic tactics. Mm-hmm. And I think you also put your sort of warrior's eye to their fortifications mm-hmm. and different approach points. So Rents is not a trained soldier. Mm-hmm. He's just someone who's been trying to keep this village safe for a long time. Mm-hmm. So his experience level, his tactics, that kind of thing, they're probably on par with a fairly experienced town guard. Mm-hmm. But you help him take a look at this differently as what if this village was under assault? Or mm-hmm. what's visible from the outside? How could we make it less likely that somebody would notice the village from across the lake? Mm-hmm. And they spend some time working on that. So I do think you significantly upgrade the security mm-hmm. of the village with the time that you invest there.
Mm-hmm. Using materials that we've garnered from this mm-hmm. down below.
We can talk to Pando the next time Courtney's here about maybe what she invests some of her extra time in. Mm-hmm. But let's say 3 days after this boss fight, Potom, you're wiped, but awake.
It's definitely
Just
riding in the
imagine that I'm
basket
kind
on
of
his
like,
cricket.
just kind of like sitting in the cafe, like not fully propped up,
Right.
Yeah.
like just scattered notes in front of me.
Yeah. But I think it's for you. It's a moment of like, and maybe you all have taken to gathering at first light at this point to just circle up together when everybody else has now become an animal, and you're like, so what's up?
Sure, we meet over breakfast.
Yeah.
Watch out, that panther might bite you. That's all I gotta say. Whoa. Panther.
Stay away from Carl.
Yeah,
It's just
exactly.
I'm just gonna push it out there.
Yeah.
Nothing specific. Just maybe give him a wide berth.
Yeah.
So I think Potom, you're again physically, mentally exhausted, drained, but I think you've recognized that whatever you are going to accomplish here, you've accomplished it. So mentally, you're like, we're done here. As far as what you can pull out of this lab and about what you're going to unlock in your own mind about what is capable here, what you're capable of doing. The one question I have for you is the weird battery that he made. What do you do with it? Because it's too big for you to take with you.
Oh, it is too big too big to take the whole thing with.
Yes, and what you now understand about it tells you that if you break it down, it will not be what it is right now.
Okay.
So you could salvage material from it by chipping away at it, but if you break it up at all, like if you take out the outer layer or the next layer down, it is no longer going to function. Like at this point, it is, and this is touching on the edge of what we'll talk about later, but it is too close to a living being. And if you mess with it, it might not survive the process. It will fundamentally be different.
Okay.
To be clear, I'm not saying it's a living being,
Right.
but if you start busting it up,
Foreshadow.
It'll definitely die.
it won't be what it is.
Which is not a living being.
I didn't say that either. I'm neither confirming nor denying, but I'm saying it's too big to take with you, and you can't tear it apart without outcomes.
With my understanding of it, is there any danger in leaving it as a power source for the village?
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
Like, is it going to grow its own legs and eventually walk off?
Eat people?
Consciousness, yeah.
Or can I be Benjamin Franklin and bring electricity to France?
For parlor tricks and
So the
Streetlights.
the short answer is, if what you basically wanted to do was like run an extension cord up through the hole out into the meeting hall and teach them how to attach some stuff to it, yeah, you could do that. It'd probably take you a day. The village is not really equipped with the kind of stuff that exists in the noble quarter of Chukip or the elven capital. Like, there's not a bunch of magical lanterns to plug into this, or like, the things you would plug into that power source don't really exist here now.
Sure.
So you'd be creating an infrastructure that doesn't have a use case at this time. If you wanted to invest extra time in building some of those things, you could. So again, the more days you stack onto your visit here, you could do a lot of stuff. I mean, you're a very handy dude.
Mm-hmm.
So you could build all kinds of things. The question is, how long are you going to stay in this village, and what else is happening in the rest of the world while that's going on? But you are capable of that, and there are enough materials here to do some stuff like that. The answer to your other question, will there be unforeseen consequences to this? You don't know. You just had a breakthrough to understand the basics of transmutation because you explored this thing, but you still don't really know what it is. You just suspect some weird stuff about it.
All right. Well, in the case of science, we'll dissect the thing. Let's take it apart. Down to the core battery that I ended up, the exocomp's heart aside, right down to the core battery, their cage. But each layer that we take off, I guess this is where Potham will need another day, because he would like to document each layer as it's taken off and what it's composed of, and a brief drawing and.
Awesome. I'm delighted by this choice. Is anyone around when you do this?
Well, it all depends on.
We can all collectively answer that.
It all depends on what time of day it is. Samuel, I imagine is one person's counsel that I've been keeping over the last couple of days. So we'll flip a coin.
Maybe you need Freya's brawn in there, and she's slightly freaked out just to see what you've decided to do. She's not necessarily 100% sure that it's the right thing, but
I will say that Samuel is not there. Even will say that he is there.
Okay, great.
2, he's there.
Okay. All right, so Samuel and Freya. Is this the kind of thing that Potham would do when, like...
You're like, I know.
Nope.
Is this the kind of thing that Potham would do when, like, villagers are putzing around down there? Or is this the kind of thing where he'd be like, we're going to wait till the late morning when it's just us?
Why are you down here? I've already stated that you should not be down here.
He keeps
Well,
repinning
Samuel's
up
there.
the tape or whatever.
Samuel is there, so
Well, yeah, Samuel.
Oh, yeah,
Samuel's
Samuel's there.
allowed.
So it's nighttime.
it's nighttime.
Okay.
But just kind of kick everyone else out.
Yeah, I think that Potham is sort of constantly, whenever he sort of comes up for air for a moment, is like
Just yelling at people.
yeah, just yells at villagers for milling around.
All right. Okay. Well, what this tells me then is only 3 people see what happens, and what happens is
Dang, Air wants to be there, but I can't think of a good reason for her to. Maybe she just comes
I
upon
mean, you don't-
it.
Or are you just up over
you don't
there?
need a
just
good
kinda-
reason.
You're
I mean,
just sitting there watching.
y'all are
You're
just
not gonna
hanging
help.
out. So unless Air has some other thing she was off doing, it's not unreasonable that you're sitting with your
Air
friends
is
while
an
they putz.
insomniac, and she
Well, that and
comes upon it.
I'm sure that you have taken a great pastime in just poking fun at Potham's.
Air,
Yeah, right.
Air's in the corner popping those salt licorice candies.
With her feet up on sitting on
Or,
some
I
crates
was
with her
gonna say
feet up.
sitting with
Yeah.
their feet dangling on the edge.
Yeah,
Like,
waiting for this thing to explode, looking for
oh my God,
the.
in here.
All right.
Something's gonna happen here.
Something is going to happen here. So here's what happens.
Oop.
I think
I have another Guinness if everyone wants a Guinness.
so Air is kind of
Beer upstairs, too.
sitting and watching, nibbling on candies. Samuel is perched up high and kind of far away. I don't think he's totally comfortable being up close to what's going on.
Okay.
And probably Potham warns him a little bit, like, I don't totally know what's gonna happen here.
Maybe shield your eyes.
Yeah. And then you start pulling this thing apart. And you need Freya's help to do it. So I think you're, without the exocomp near to hand, you can do some of the cutting and tell Freya where to pry. But she, I think, is having to do some of the yanking of this thing apart, the actual demo work.
Gentle, easy.
As you bust the first layer off, the first thing you notice is that it's not fully metal on the outside.
Is there blood?
It's,
Fleshy.
I mean, it has some
Pussy.
qualities of metal, but when you crack into when you start pulling it off and you crack into the middle of it, Freya, I think, would recognize it first before anyone else. There's marrow inside. It's metal bones. And not like old dead bones. Like bones. And it leaks. You get that layer off. And when that layer is off, the pitch of the vibrations of the central battery shift a little. Not in a necessarily unsettling way. Not like it was in the middle of the battle where you were like, uh-oh, are we headed towards a catastrophe? But it changes. The tone shifts. And as you start removing the second layer, it's more like metal. It doesn't remind you of bones, but it is weirdly, if metal could be described as fibrous, it's fibrous. As you're pulling it apart, it doesn't.
So like a
snap.
cable?
Yeah.
Don't breathe it in, it could be
But like if a
asbestos.
cable grew itself.
Sure.
It really, really fine, super, super fine cable.
Yeah.
Twisted
Yeah,
together.
and not neat and clean. Like when you cut into a cable, it's all like nicely. All the little fibers are exactly the same size, and they're twisted in this pretty little pattern. It's very satisfying. This isn't like that. It's like the cross section of muscle or a tendon, perhaps. But it doesn't bleed, so that's good. It doesn't weep or cry out that you can hear. But when
Okay,
you get
little gnome, we are dissecting.
when you get the second layer off, the tone of the vibration shifts again, and now it's definitely accelerating. And then it seems to level off. And then you continue, I think. And now you're at a layer that actually looks a lot like what you've built. It's not radically transformed. This is the layer that most fascinated you and created the mental breakthrough for you, because this is the layer where you can just start to see the shift between construct and organic growth. Where whatever magic or whatever process he applied, this is what bridged what you built into what he was trying to create. And this is really fascinating to get to touch this layer and get into this layer. Unlocks kind of some more discoveries for you, I think. But when you break it, that's when something really interesting happens. Because it is when that construct first breaks, and you don't even have the ability to, you don't even have time to pull it all apart and get to that most inner layer, because as soon as it breaks, as soon as containment is broken there, the pitch of the vibration of the central battery upticks dramatically, and now it doesn't sound like anything you've ever heard before.
Ooh.
Because
Like bad?
no,
Okay.
just bad in the sense that it's completely unfamiliar to you. So like, you've worked with dozens, maybe hundreds of these batteries. You created so many versions of this as you were experimenting, and they always have had a certain pitch, a certain vibration. Most of the time, it's been very, very consistent. And the only variation that you have seen in your work is that certain constructs outside of it have increased the volume, essentially. That's the best way I can explain it. It's not necessarily a real volume, like, oh, everybody can hear this loud noise, but the intensity of the vibration you've been able to ramp up and up and up and up, and that's how you get more power out of the batteries. But you've never changed the pitch of the vibration. This device has changed the pitch. And as you've taken it apart, that pitch has been slowly returning to the tone you're familiar with. But the moment you break this, it goes back so fast that it seems to swing in the other direction. So now it's like a wave. So this device had tuned the pitch. This is a bad analogy, but imagine that it had tuned the pitch of this vibration up, 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 up. And it was this very high pitched wee when this was all together. When you crack this, it goes wee, and all of a sudden it's this low pitch. Again, not a real sound, but magically speaking, this is what happens. And then the battery doesn't physically shatter, but it shatters. Whatever magical containment field exists within this battery that contains whatever it is that creates power in here, and you, though you understand this thing, you don't actually know what that is. You've never been able to look past what the containment that you created to see what actually is generating the magical force inside.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever that containment is, it shatters. But the battery doesn't change. But all of you feel something pass through your body. Not like a wave passes over you, but like somewhere between 50 and 100 small things hit you all over your body. And they are cold. And they tingle like if you stuck your finger in an electrical socket. And you feel they have some kind of size or mass, perhaps, because you feel them pass through your body. You can feel them enter the front of you and leave the back of you, and then they're gone. And it's fast, but not like lightning fast, like they hit you and wriggled and then exited.
Like a laser. Like a cold laser straight through.
Yeah, but not that fast.
Laser? Okay.
Like the image that's stuck in your head afterwards, all of you, and you talk about this, the image that's stuck in your head afterwards is if like an invisible minnow, like an electric eel the size of a minnow, a ghost eel.
A ghost electric eel the
Like
size of a
like if 100 ghost electric eels the size of minnows hit your body at different places and wriggled through you and exited out the back and then were gone.
Creepy.
That's kind of what it felt like.
And do we see these minnows, or is it just...
So just a feeling.
No,
Just
you don't see them, but I think... Oh, well, why don't everybody roll a perception check?
Eight.
Not a bad day.
18,
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Good for you.
because I'm exhausted and I had to roll that at disadvantage.
Yeah.
Take the
10.
lower one.
So Pot, I think the only person that sees Potham, you see something, but all you see is out of the corner of your eye, in every direction, up, above, below, on the floor. It's a split second after these things pass through you. The feeling ends, and you see on the floor, walls, ceiling, wherever you're looking, for a split second, like gently glowing speckles appear and then vanish. So whatever this was, whatever was released from this, passed through the walls of this laboratory too and out into the world.
Where did it go? Bottom.
It was vaporized.
It was vaporized.
just to call back to that strange movie. I don't know, what was that called?
I can't even remember.
It's a Jack Black movie
Right.
where he invents
Oh, right.
a spray can that you spray on dog poop and it
It's
vanishes.
vaporized.
It was vaporized. And was it or Ben Stiller was his neighbor? It was a strange movie. Greed? Is that what it was called?
Vaporized.
I think it was
yeah.
called Greed.
Right.
Anyway,
Vaporized.
So that happened.
Okay, that was weird. That was weird
You
again.
released baby ghost electric eels.
I
Well,
Weird.
maybe. Or
Maybe.
something happened.
I am too tired to understand what that just was.
Is there anything else you want to accomplish in the village, or is this a time where maybe after this weirdness you circle up and talk about what's next as a party?
Yeah, probably, right?
Kind of pull together some of your loose threads.
This has been
I think maybe this
has
is
been
something
nice.
a panda would ask. Like, what are we
What are
doing?
we doing?
Yeah, I can't imagine this place has very many shopkeepers with cool, unusual loot.
No.
Well, I mean, we definitely we've found some things that we set out to find here, and it may not have offered us the answers that we necessarily wanted to have.
I think that there are, well,
More questions than
Before-
answers.
before returning to sell things to Morana back at the village, I think that there are two things that are threads that I would just like to tie up, I guess, before we leave. There is this map of the monoliths. Potham will remind everyone that he drew a map. There's something here. And since we're in the village outside of some of these, might be a good base to just look at these a little bit closer. Because there's something that I just can't put my paw on. It doesn't have paws.
Yeah, I was gonna
Hands.
say
Yeah. I can't put my hands on. Because I'm so tired. The other thing, I think that we need to return to that temple that we stopped at on the way. I just, now that we have a laboratory here and I have an idea that I think that we should return to that temple. Anyway, that's what I think we should do next.
I'm game. I'll go.
Yeah, Air's always game. Where there's loot and treasure and blades. That's basically
I mean,
basically it.
We could return to the temple, but we can't get back down. We've stopped ourselves from getting back down.
Right, we can't
How
get
could
back
we possibly
in, Potham.
get back in?
It's impossible for us to get back in, Potham.
No, we can't. So why would we go?
Yeah, it makes no sense, Potham. Care to explain?
Just to pay our respects.
Not good enough.
Okay, fine. You don't have to go.
All right. Well, I have questions.
So I think Panda would bring up that on the journey back to Nantong, she would appreciate an opportunity to just skirt past the wound again.
I was going to ask, does Pando need any more time? Has Pando had time to go out and just kind of explore? Has she had time
Commune
to
with
see
nature?
if she can get in a little further to the weirdness or whatever it is?
Yeah, so I'll talk to her about that, or we'll incorporate it into the next session a little bit. But I'm thinking you all have basically invested 3 days ish in some of your various pursuits, and so that's enough time for her to do one of her solo walkabouts up to take a closer look at this energy source up there. Air, I would say, of everyone, you maybe have enough leftover time that if you wanted to go with her on part of that, you'd be able to do that. But otherwise, I think the rest of you were pretty occupied during that. But we can leave that to her. I guess I don't know exactly what will happen when she go up there because I can't predict her choices. But I don't think it'll be anything disruptive enough that it would like transform anything you guys are going to talk about or choose to do right now. More of a go peek at this kind of a thing and see what you can learn. But she is very curious to just walk along the edge of the wound again because she's very interested in the druid that she met up there. and the possibility of running back into that person.
I'm also, just as we're going around here, I'm picking back up my 2 javelins that I threw. I think there were 2 different ones that I threw at times, so I'm just taking this back along with me, just as a.
So I think
And well, also if we do spend another just a couple of days here, allow Potom to rest up so he can clear his exhaustion. But also, there are materials abound in here that, and an exocomp that seems to be lacking.
yeah, I mean, if you guys want to stay another 2 days, so you're basically spending a week here in the village, you can do that, which would give you time to kill that exhaustion and build a new exocomp.
I'm just gonna go out. I've been checking on the crickets too. We still have 3 crickets.
Yeah.
And,
the crickets.
Yeah, they've been chilling in the woods. They're doing okay, I think. Huh?
Yeah, they're in
Yeah.
good
Can you
shape.
imagine that we could probably bring the crickets closer than just in the woods?
Definitely. Yeah, brought them in.
Yeah, you've got them for sure.
Helping with the construction, moving.
I know.
building
I've done.
supplies.
Susan and I have communed very well together. I've done my meditation. I've gone in and we've had some deep conversations.
Mhm.
The only other loose thread I will put out here is that the half-elf that you saved, after a
right.
couple days, he's doing better, and he's up and about a little bit. He probably won't be ready to travel himself for a couple more days. It seems like he's going to kind of chill here for a bit. But if you wanted to engage with him, he's around.
Forgot about that.
Air
guy.
definitely engages with him.
Yeah, that's a good air thing.
Yeah,
to do.
I was going to say that's a good air thing.
All right, so you find him.
Half elf to half elf.
Half elf is his name. Well, first name half.
Half first name half.
Same.
Ironically, he's actually half orc or something.
Yeah, he's actually an ogre,
Yeah.
but his name is half elf. No, he is a half elf, and you, when you approach him, you find him in the sort of small eat-in kitchen of one of the local families who has chosen to host him. He looks fairly hale compared to how you saw him the last time.
Okay.
His color is back. He's not covered in goo.
Yeah, those positives.
Yeah, he's doing a little better. And when you walk in, he is immediately pretty effusive with his praise and thanks to you and your party for saving him. He still seems emotionally a little traumatized by this whole experience. But he introduces himself as one Markenyan Witherspoon.
Okay. Markenyan Witherspoon. Obviously made up name.
All names are made up.
If that's your real name, Markenyan Witherspoon. Markenyan Witherspoon is, as you get into conversation with him a little bit, you find out fairly quickly, he's sort of a middle-class merchant family. His family lives on the outskirts of the capital city.
Oh, okay. So he's a pretty far distance from home here.
He's a long way from home. And basically what this guy is doing is he's the half-elf equivalent of like a kid in his early to mid-20s. And he got sent on a sort of a trade mission by his father to deliver some goods and bring some goods back. But he was given broad latitude with his timing, and he decided he wanted to travel a little bit. He wanted to explore the mainland a bit. And
so is Wild Oats. I
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah, so to speak. But essentially, he delivered some goods to Nantong.
Okay.
He was meant to be back in Nantong, he estimates a good 10, 12 days ago, to pick up a return shipment and bring it back to the capital for his father. But because he had some downtime, he decided to take a boat up the river and see more of the surroundings, right? He wanted a little bit of an adventure. So he bought some supplies and he went exploring a little bit. He had a guide initially, but that when the boat that was taking him upriver set him down, he decided he wanted to go out and just hike and camp a little bit and come back later. And it was while he was walking through these jungles that he was abducted.
Okay.
And what you have now experienced.
Is this an unusual part of the region to go just exploring? Like, there's no like destination really? Like, this is a hidden village. This is kind of a wasteland.
So to be clear, he did not get abducted in Teshiar.
Right.
So Teshiar is a rumor.
Right.
So
right.
he wasn't like, I'm going to find the ancient city of Teshiar. But you could imagine it a little bit this way. Like if you're in your early 20s and you work for a corporation and they're like, we're going to send you on a business trip to China.
Mm-hmm.
And what you need to do while you're out there only takes 2 days, but you can stay longer if you want. Like, we don't care, as long as you're back in time for work on the next Monday.
Yeah.
And so you're like, cool, I'm going to go out there, and while I'm there, I'm going to go check this out and go check that out. And maybe I'll get a guided tour up the Great Wall or whatever. So it's not such an unusual thing. Like, you're not that far from Nantong that this is like a crazy, irrational story, I think.
Okay.
He had an unfortunate outcome because he was, he got a chartered river cruise and went up, and then he was like, I want to camp one night. And
Under the stars.
then he woke up in a glass tube covered in goo in a
Happens
place.
to the best of us.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Like
With a fight happening around him.
right. Oh no, he was awake a bunch of times
Oh,
before
okay.
you all showed up. He has a good solid
Lot of-
week of trauma that
Yeah.
he's unpacking.
A lot of
and
emotional
probably
scars.
will
Yeah.
for a long time.
Yeah.
And he lost his job.
Yeah, fiance's gone.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
know. It's like
I mean, he's certainly late to
like-
pick up his shipment. But he is anxious to like recover and get back to Nantong and like figure out what's next.
Mhm.
But he's bouncing back physically pretty well, it seems like. So that's what you very briefly learn from
Mhm.
him.
Well, it might be good to have like a capital city contact. That might be useful. I don't know. What else would be just kind of like a Nantong merchant?
Well, I'll just offer you that you
Throw me a bone.
you may want to reflect on some of the information you got from the notes that you
Sure.
recovered. Like you got some intel here from the notes you found in the laboratory. You could cross-reference a little of that with this guy.
just ask sort of what his experience was, or if
He
he
sat in
feels
that-
changed in any way.
He sat in
or
that
like,
tube for a week.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was your? I was trying to.
Maybe-
Well, I was trying to be kind to his trauma, but okay, we'll interrogate him.
You don't have to do anything.
It
But
doesn't have to be interrogation.
Shift the
You
lantern
can
ever
make
so
Yeah.
slightly.
us,
Tell us what happened to you down there.
Yeah. Really
Yeah.
interesting. Well, you know what? We have these notes here that don't really match up exactly with what you were telling us.
Tell us what happened.
Spoken like a true lawyer.
Yeah. You know, we can throw out some victim blaming.
yeah, yell.
What were you doing out here by yourself camping? Seems kind of weird, doesn't it?
And this
Would-
is ancient times, so I mean you could slap him around a little bit.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can Use a
exactly.
phone book.
Yeah, you don't.
Potatoes in a bag.
Yeah.
Wow. we
Potatoes in a
jumped
bag.
quickly.
Well, Bruce.
Wait, what?
Oh,
what-
you thought that trauma was bad. Wait
It's
until
just
you
started.
see me.
Why do you have these tubers in a bag?
Oh my goodness.
Hi.
Well, so how are you approaching your conversation with Witherspoon?
Well, he clearly knows who we are and what we did.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I give him some basic information about how we're looking for
I'll be up.
we're trying to get to the root cause of these. We are concerned there might be more of these laboratories with more victims, and that we're trying to find out what we can about kind of their root source, and that any kind of information that he has about his experience that could help us with that would be great, because Eric killed the prime witness.
That's true. You
We
did.
moved on from that pretty quickly, though, so that's fine.
Well, so there's a couple things I think he can tell you, and I would say this: you probably have to come back and visit him more than once, because I do think this was a very traumatic experience for him.
Right.
I'd like you to make
You got it.
I'd like you to make a persuasion check
Okay.
to see how effectively you can kind of calm him and help him stay focused on what you're trying to, and the information you're trying to get from him. Because I think he very quickly might shut down at times if it starts to feel.
Oh my gosh, my rolls are
Awful tonight? Yeah, mine too.
absolute dog shit. Well, I was feeling pretty good about having a +8
Yeah.
to persuasion, but it's 3, so it's 11.
11. Well, so 11 is still better than the average person.
Better than 10.
It's not great.
Yeah.
But I think in your first interaction, you realize pretty quickly that you're not going to get a lot out of him without him like shutting down, because he's really traumatized by this.
Yeah.
And so I think you end the first conversation fairly quickly after you just kind of learn more about him and how did you get here. But I think the moment you start talking about like, so what was it like in the tube? Like,
Tell me what it's like.
what did you see Tentathian doing? Right? Like you kind of
Yeah.
start picking at like,
Show us on the doll where you did
what? I think he pretty quickly shuts down, and so the only consequence there, I think, is that you've got to come back the next day when he's had a chance to kind of continue to heal up a little bit and recover, and you more slowly build trust with him. And so the only cost to this, I'm going to say, is there goes your free time that I mentioned earlier, where you might have gone somewhere with Pando. I think now you've got everybody here now has invested all the free time they had into some pursuit,
Sure.
and yours is focused on Witherspoon. But I do think eventually you get some items of interest out of your interviews with him.
Mm-hmm.
So first and foremost, you learn that he was conscious most of the time in the tube.
Oof.
And though he did sleep at times, and there were times where he was being actively like experimented on,
Right.
or something was happening to him that prevented him from being able to like observe. There were also long swaths of time where Tentathian seemed to just forget about him and go about his business, and he was able to observe a little. Now he doesn't understand a lot of what was going on, but through your interviews you're able to pick up on maybe some pieces of data that would be interesting to you. So here's how I'm going to approach this. You may ask 3 questions
Okay.
about what he observed during the 6 days or so that
Okay.
he was stuck in this tube, and he will do his best to answer you based on what I think he could have seen.
That scene from the Dungeons and Dragons
Yeah.
just came into my head, which is what I was laughing at. Well, you didn't ask your last question.
I know. Wait!
So great.
Well, I think one question would be, would he have seen anything, or know anything, hear anything, that would provide identifying information of who he was speaking to, the wizard was speaking to, or even a location where he was,
So
right?
So I think he wrestles with this one because until you ask specifically about the portal.
Sure.
But I do think you get there because he's like, what do you mean talking to people, right? He's like, it was mostly just him down here and us. But one of the things he did see was every once in a while the wizard would approach this birch hoop, and he could see it light up, glow, and see the wizard passing things through it, pieces of paper, or sometimes physical objects, sometimes a box. And I think after a while you uncover something that does feel useful to you, which is that he's pretty sure that on different occasions that hoop was opening up to different places. He didn't have a direct line of sight into the portal, but he describes different like colors of light,
Okay.
and at times different hands that seem to pass through the portal. That doesn't necessarily mean that it was opening up on different places. It could have been like different times of day. He's not really sure of the passage of time, but the portal wasn't. It didn't show up the same way every time.
Okay. Can you describe what was happening? Were there instances where he was particularly excited or happy in what was going on then? What was he doing? What was occurring?
Yeah, so there's two occurrences that he remembers where Tantathian seemed particularly animated. One was when a specific box passed through the portal, and he opened it up and pulled a sort of metal cage out of it, and seemed to stick something in his pocket, and then got real excited and spent a lot of time and energy focused on taking this newest thing and putzing with it. He does say that later he seemed to be very frustrated, but there was a lot of excitement when that box came through. And the second time that he got really excited was when shortly after, probably a day, he thinks a day or two after he was trapped in the tube, when the wizard came down, and floating in front of him was the person that you now know to be Truffle. And he said the Tantathian at the time was like bouncing off the walls, so excited as he sort of strapped her into the big, the main chamber,
Right.
with his big organic battery. Those are the two times when he was most excited and animated.
Trying to think, what else would Air ask about?
Well, you can talk about this as a group too. Like, it's not all just one interview.
Sure.
So you all probably could have been comparing notes or
What do you guys think?
thinking of other questions you want to put to him.
Team powwow.
This is one of our breakfast meetings.
Yeah.
Past the chilaquiles.
And again, this is just the three questions are just about what he observed from the tube.
Right.
So that doesn't mean those are the only questions you can ever ask him. There may be other information there may be other things that he could tell you that are useful to you, but in terms of what he can remember from being stuck inside the tube, he can remember three things. So you're gonna.
He can remember 3 things.
That's how I'm mechanically gonna limit what he can remember. You can ask one more question.
Okay.
Being a merchant. Well, you can ask about the tube question, but I have another question that's not tube related. Being a merchant, being of a merchant family, traveling between the capital city and these boondocks. Can he comment on any kind of? Has he experienced any increased blade presence in his travels in the region, or more roadblocks, that kind of thing, or increased scrutiny on trade routes, things like that? Give you specific types of goods.
Sure. So he did not experience that in Nantong. But as you do some calculations, you're pretty sure he arrived in Nantong probably more than a week before you did.
Okay.
So you've had a more recent experience entering that port city than him.
Mhm.
But no, he has not experienced that in this region.
I don't know. What do you guys think about the 2 questions?
Questions from the room.
You know.
I was gonna say like maybe just the more detailed steps on what happened to Truffle, but maybe that's not even useful. We kind of know.
Right.
I know.
Generally.
I'm just thinking about. I wish that he had a little better view of the portal, things coming through the
Yeah,
portal.
the portal
but-
would have been more useful.
Secret hiding places.
Oh,
We haven't looked over that
Good
place
call.
for secret hiding places.
right.
Yeah.
Is there a secret hiding place?
That's
Any
good
yeah,
call.
any
That
any
is that.
secret compartments or rooms or anything like that?
He is. He smiles.
That's a pretty good question.
Mhm.
Oh! Anything we missed? Yeah.
As he's racking his brain about this, he suddenly kind of gets excited, and he says, "The table, the workbench. The workbench is hollow.
Oh.
I remember he slid a panel or something. He did something, and the surface of the workbench opened up, and I couldn't see, but I saw it swing up. Did you look? Have you seen? Did you look inside the workbench?"
Well, we do now.
Well, I think we're gonna go do that.
I imagine you're like,
Hold your
let
thought.
Me, you
yeah.
know what? Let me check. I'm sure we have. I
Yeah.
just wanted to see what you knew.
I'm sure we have.
And
Let
then
me
you,
check
Like, you run out of the room.
Let me check with my people.
Yeah. I'll check my people. Circle back. Touch base.
All right. So you investigate the workbench,
I love this game.
and it is it's really cleverly concealed. It is a combination of mechanical concealment and a very simple, a minor illusion spell that's hiding some of the fittings, the seams. So it's not until you literally run your fingers along this thing that you feel where this catch is. And working together, you uncover it and you open it up.
I just want to say that I believe we checked for traps before this happened.
Good. That's really good. Good retcon.
Thanks.
Yeah.
The thing is that you didn't give us the opportunity to do it before.
Right.
So.
And obviously there are no traps here.
Oh shoot.
So
Thank God.
Convenient.
because I only put traps on it when you
Don't
Failed
forget,
to say that.
when you forget to say check for traps, and if I forget to give you time to check for traps, then obviously there are no traps.
Well, it makes sense.
Yeah, it all makes sense. What you find inside is another very slender notebook. And this notebook is more like a personal journal. And as you start flipping through the pages of this journal, you recognize the, not ravings, but the diligent and almost compulsive
Ravings of a lunatic.
Yeah,
Um,
breaking down of a same mind.
this is a broken, paranoid mind recording details about the network that he's a part of,
Okay.
on the assumption that some of these people are going to betray him, and he needs options and a plan.
So it's very
And some
very
power.
self-serving, very.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So
He's looking to protect himself, not
It be-
necessarily the goal of the
Yes.
movement or whatever. Yeah.
it becomes clear as you start to read this that though he is thrilled to have been given all of this power and all this resource and all of this to be invested in and the freedom to explore and do all these things, that at the exact same time he is terrified of the people that are giving him this power and these resources, and he is
So it's really pointing upward, not
yes
sideways.
upward.
Yeah.
He is deeply concerned, deeply paranoid about the moment that the hammer is going to drop and he's going to be hung out to dry, be made the
Be the
scapegoat,
Yeah.
or to just be straight up killed because he knows too much about what's going
Not
on.
useful anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, like how slowly can I dribble out my accomplishments so that I seem useful, but if I give them too much, they're just gonna kill me and take my research. It's very clear as you read that he knew somebody else.
He was also a victim.
Yeah, it's very it's sad, really.
Sad, really.
But it's clear that he knew somebody else who was given an opportunity like this, and late in his research, so about the time that he was moving into animals, a rumor reached him that this former colleague of his had vanished, and he leaps to the conclusion that this organization disappeared this guy, and that he's next.
That he's disappeared them and unalived them.
And unalived them, right.
Oof, he could have been an ally.
Oh, shut up. Shut up.
I have nothing to say about that. You make whatever assumptions you want.
Okay, I'll just have my own delusions of paranoid mind.
Do it.
That's what we do.
That. Okay.
The most important thing you get from this journal are two names. Fane.
Who we've heard before, haven't we? No?
Sounds familiar.
Sounds familiar. Where's Pando to tell me if we've heard
Yeah.
that before?
Right.
Wait, and all of her notes.
Yeah. I depend on Pando. I had to keep diligent notes on names.
So Fane is one, and the other is Tenno Kirin.
We know the house, obviously.
Last thing I'll say is you've got a capital resident in the village with you.
It's true.
Who you've been having a lot of chats with.
Should just go to the capital.
We could just ask him who Tenno Fane is. Or
Yeah.
Tenno Kirin and
Yeah.
Fane.
Yeah.
Have you heard these names before?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Nope.
Never.
Fane, he does not ring a bell for him,
Okay.
but it is super familiar to you all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you watched a sort of Star Wars. What's the new? Is it New Order? Is that
That is one.
who's the
that's a-
Empire in the new ones?
Oh yeah, the new
First Order.
The First Order.
First Order. You watched somebody marching back and forth in a municipal meeting, council meeting on stage, giving a nearly First Order level racist rant.
A red-haired elf, right?
I knew
Yeah.
it.
Yes, a red-haired elf.
A man
That
named
guy.
Rostero Fane,
Oh.
who is part of a faction
That's
known
right.
as
He
the
was the one
Greeters
that
of the
was
Dawn.
Greeters of the Dawn, and
I
the
missed
ones
the
that
Greeters
were.
of the Dawn, you know?
It was good to have a clear enemy.
Yeah, I mean, it was, you know, they were a good anchor.
Yeah.
Gentle Harvest isn't good enough for you?
No, that's too nice. They're
Yeah.
Greeters of the Dawn sounds so
and
absolute.
and he runs
Yeah.
really the greeter, the premier greeter of the dawn.
Yeah,
He
Greeter of the
was
Dawn sounds
the-
like, you know,
Seemed to be a
apocalyptic.
rising star.
Yeah, he did.
But Tenno Tenno Kieran is very familiar.
Gentle Harvest sounds like some potheads or something. They're like
I-
some hippies.
Gentle Harvest LLC,
Yeah.
the new Oregon startup.
Yeah.
Mark Kenyon is familiar with Tenno Tenno Kieran, and it seems surprised that you're not. Tenno Tenno Kieran is the patriarch of the noble house Kieran.
Okay.
And the house is
Yeah, we
Who
definitely know
resides
his daughter.
in the capital,
right.
in on their estates,
Right.
and they're the dominant noble house in Chukip, though they're not as prominent in the capital.
Right.
They're what Mark Kenyon says is in the capital they're sort of viewed as
Provincial.
while wealthy, but a little provincial. Yeah, they're not old money.
Yeah.
They're
Uh,
bourgeois.
They're not in the
Yeah.
inner
Bourgeoisie.
circle.
As the house Kieran was described to me once, they're Milwaukee rich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, they are. They are Milwaukee rich. That is for sure. So Tenno Tenno is the patriarch of that house.
Hmm.
I'll give you this one for free. But in the notes and letters you found, House Undori is also mentioned, and he can tell you just a little bit about House Undori because, and I also I guess would say, Pando and Air, you know this
Mhm.
because House Undori is the house of the Emperor's family.
Oh, okay.
They are only direct descendants of the Emperor can claim this family name.
Sure.
Those who marry into the Emperor's household retain their own family name rather than take on Andori.
Oh,
but their
only blood.
children
Yeah.
can be Andori.
Princess of the blood.
Mhm. The crest of the Andori house is a griffin rampant before the rising sun.
Mm.
So, that...
Like battle griffins.
Griffin. Yeah.
So that is
We need
that's
some more range.
that's about all the intel you're going to squeeze out of Mark Kenyon.
And to be fair, that's all he's really capable of.
Yeah. I'm just happy to see a good old religious cult back in the game here.
Yeah.
Oh, it never left.
Oh yeah, I love good.
It's, we just haven't dealt with them for a season.
Yeah.
Might be several cults currently operating.
Perfect. The more the
I
merrier.
love a good cult.
I love a good cult too. Very
Uh,
pro cult.
Yeah, gotta order
And
some
D&D.
cultist minis.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we can probably draw it to a close here pretty soon for tonight. But I want to talk about what's next for you, because when we come back, I need to have prepped what
Sure.
you're doing next. I don't want to start the next session and be like, "Where do you want to go?"
South.
So you tell me as a party where you headed.
Before that happens, so Bottom is working on the new exocomp. But it would be a real shame to let all of this stuff that he's learned, not be
Exactly. Not
practiced, especially when it
informed.
is so fresh. So this, around the battery for the exocomp, can he attempt to make one of those cages?
The organic cages.
The organic cages?
Oh, jeez. Oof.
Just the bridge level. Because I imagine that the 2 levels after that
Tries and fails or something.
form themselves.
Here's what I'll say. You can try to do this. I'm going to offer you a risk reward to consider. Of course.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
So You can use what you've learned here to build an exocomp that is essentially the same design that you've always used, but you can use some of what you've learned here to strengthen it in a small but significant way, right? A minor upgrade to what you're doing, and I will tell you what the mechanical outcome of that is if you choose this path. But there's very little risk associated with that. Basically, now when you rebuild your exocomp, because of what you've discovered here, it'll get a little edge. Or you can try to create something new. You can try to. So the difference is you can keep the exocomp battery as is. And as a reminder, the exocomp battery is your best one. It's the best one you've done. You can keep it as is and just use some of what you've learned about transmutation in the construction around it to make the exocomp a little better. Or you can futz with this battery. And if you futz with this battery, we're going to roll dice and see if something bad happens. And there will be varying degrees of bad in the dice roll. And my definition of varying degrees of bad is going to be interesting. There's going to be a 1% chance that some crazy bad stuff happens. And Potham's fully aware of that.
Black hole, whole entire world comes crashing down.
Yeah. Campaign over.
Well, for Potham.
Well,
But
there is a 1% chance that we blow up the world. Start the atmosphere on fire.
Yeah, it's like very
It's-
Oppenheimer.
it's an Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
near
zero.
I guess what I will say is the best guess Potham could make is if you decide to do this and really transform the battery, the process of transforming the battery, you're guessing there's like a 25% chance it doesn't go so good and something bad happens. And the extremity of that bad is hard for you to guess. But there's like a 25% chance you're thinking like, I won't get this quite right. There's probably a 50% chance that
We break even.
that nothing crazy happens. Like
Okay.
it's fine, and
Might
you
learn a
maintain
little
the
something.
integrity. And there's probably another 25% chance where like something unexpected happens that could be a really cool discovery.
Okay.
Oh,
But
dear.
you also don't know what that will mean.
Sure.
So it's not. You're pretty sure it won't be catastrophe, but it'll be the creation of something new, and that's pretty exciting.
So just as I imagine this going, we've gone through the 3 days of, post battle, 2 days of becoming exhausted. I'm sure that there's been a long rest that's been had.
Yep.
Got a fresh mind. It's like, before we leave, I should build this exocomp out of all of these new materials that I have around me. Let's take the chance. Let's take the chance. Let's do it. I'm ready.
Ooh.
Okay. I want you to roll a d4, a physical d4, on the table for everyone to see.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
And just so everyone knows, a 1 is not good.
Offer you strength.
Two.
Not much better than a 1.
I mean, it's
Yeah, I think it's a
actually
lot better
substantially
than a
better
I
than
one.
believe, Thomas, there's a song about this. 1 is the loneliest number you could ever do. 2 is just as bad as 1. It's the loneliest number since the number 1. Oh, I guess you're right on that.
yeah.
Exactly 1 better than 1.
Yeah. So it's good news, bad news.
Okay.
The good news is you mess with the battery, and you actually manage to you add a layer to the outside of the cage, and you manage to create some kind of transformation with this. It doesn't get to the level of like organic that you saw on this other sample battery, but you do clearly change it in some way. You see the metal of this outside layer change in a way that you've never been able to before, and the pitch of the vibration does go up. So you take that as like, I did a thing, and I didn't necessarily accomplish what I was setting out to accomplish. I didn't totally transform this into something brand new, but I took the first step in the direction of what this guy did. And then I think immediately afterwards you start to question whether that was a good idea because of what this guy did.
Sure.
So I think Potom has one of those like, for science moments, and does it, and then right afterwards goes, oh.
It might have been for the darkness.
Right. But the exocomp seems to come to life the way that you've seen it before. It seems to operate the way that you've seen it operate before. And from what you can observe, it is the same exocomp that you've built a bunch of times.
Okay.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it's no longer under your control.
Right.
Well, I mean, there were hints of that in happening anyway.
Yeah. It was thinking.
Accelerated.
It was thinking.
It did. I mean, it did come after us. Well, not after us in a. I mean, it found us in a way that
Yeah.
it's not designed to be found.
Right. It was acting unexpectedly.
I love when I get to add DM notes into your various backstory channels
Oh yeah.
that end in an ellipsis.
dot dot dot.
Yeah, that's very, very satisfying to me. Where I'm like, Potom changed the battery.
See what that means.
We'll think about that another time.
We'll fill that in later.
Yeah, I like that. Well, I think we'll end it there for tonight. And when we, no.
You
I
need
need
to
to know where you all are going next.
Oh right.
What I need to, and we'll do some like catch up with Courtney, and we'll there's some things as you leave the village that we'll do. But what I need so I can prep is for the party to go. Next stop.
The cult.
Next stop, the temple.
Oh, we can go to we can go to the temple.
It's on our way back.
What's your in character explanation of why we're going to the temple?
Because we forgot stuff there.
More specifically, nothing.
No,
Nothing
that's it. It's just that Potom was like, I feel like something, like there's something that we missed.
I feel like you gotta frame it. You would have to frame it though as like, well, we're gonna go back to Nantong or something. We'll just.
I think
go
that Potom
direction,
just
yeah.
straight up says, "We're going back for that item. I'm going back for that item. I'm ready to get it now."
Yeah.
All right, I love it. So next time you're going to revisit the temple. Fun fact: the monoliths are on the way to the temple.
Mhm.
You'll pass them on the most logical course, so you'll have a chance to pause there if you want.
Do you want to do that too?
So, but the temple is what I will be prepared for, and we'll wrap it there.